Hello, I'm Angela Princewell,
And I'm Shireen Abdi.
and today we want to talk to you about surviving Valentine's Day as a newly separated spouse. Um, Hey, why do I sound so doom and gloom like this? No, you're surviving Valentine's Day. Okay, you're surviving. You got this. So that's the whole point. But honestly, I want to start off by saying I know that this is a very difficult time for you if this is your first separated, your first Valentine's Day separated, and we just wanted to talk to you more from the heart. And of course, we always have to throw in some family law in there to maybe help make this day less stressful if possible. So, I mean, I think where do we start, Shireen? You know what? You take it from here.
Yeah, so I mean, it can be stressful. If you're a very happy, newly separated person, by all means, congratulations.
Pop that champagne
Um,
by yourself.
and sometimes the stress is just maybe in terms of the dynamics, right? So in terms of how to deal with it, if you have children, especially young children, we kind of advise, to deal with any parenting scheduling conflicts in advance. So for example, if you've not really set out parenting, you're newly separated, maybe there's some lawyers involved, there's not a set schedule yet in place, just kind of wanting maybe to deal with that before in advance. So that way it
Spoken as a
doesn't.
true family law lawyer. I'm like, we're gonna start from the heart, but no, Shireen's like, hey, let's
We're
get
gonna
to
just
it. You
dive right
have
in.
but you know what, you're right. Like, how can you, if you know, if you have like something as major as a parenting scheduling conflict to deal with, then obviously that just ruins the day right there and then. Nothing, I mean, just ends right there, right? So,
Yeah, and sometimes, some parents want to be able to spend that special day with their children too, right? So it depends kind of on where you're at. If there are some issues with respect to parenting, you might just want to figure out just specifically that day if there are concerns about it. So it's the one less thing that you have to deal with because it is a new situation. It does take some time. So just if there are some issues with respect to how you guys deal with that day, if it's a day that's important to you to spend it with the children, maybe you want to kind of broach that in advance.
yeah, Shireen, can I add in here that it's not a holiday, okay? So Valentine's Day is
Yeah.
not part of a holiday schedule. So if you already have a separation agreement or some kind of court order that deals with regular versus holiday parenting schedule, Valentine's Day is considered regular parenting time. But as Shireen said, if it's something that matters to you or if it's a day that matters to you, then discussing it with your spouse can help, or your former spouse, I should say.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So you've taken care of any conflicts in advance. And when we say discuss with the other spouse, it's not just, you know, you may be able to get their buy-in, or they may agree to share that day with you or allow you to have that parenting time, even if it's not your time. But it also works that if you're not going to have the kids, wouldn't you rather know today than on the day off, right? So it's better to just deal with it in advance, and even if you're amicable, just so that it's clear that there's going to be an exception made on that day. So you've gotten the parenting taken care of. Let's talk about support, right? What kind of, I mean, if you might be happy, and I know a lot of people are happy when they it's a relief for some people when the separation process happens. However, days like this can hit you. Holidays in general are a hard time, even though Valentine's Day is not a holiday, but it's a day that hits a lot of separated people really hard.
Exactly. And it's a romantic holiday. A lot of people recognize it. I mean, the Hallmark holidays really
Mhm.
stretched out too. It's all about romance, all about love. So if you're newly separated, whether or not it's a decision you made, it might be a little bit of a constant reminder. So we recommend, to just kind of deal with that day a little easier is to have some good support system in place. If you have, friends and family, of course, it's nice to always have a good support system, but specifically that day, if you have if you maybe don't want to be alone, have something to do with your friends or your girlfriends or your male friends, whatever it is. And you just want to kind of be surrounded. Maybe it's not a reminder for you, so it's a different kind of celebration of a day,
Mhm.
just so that you don't have to feel a little down because it happens. It's part of life. But yeah, and if you do kind of maybe not want to be surrounded by people, plan a day around all of the things that you love. Have a good relaxing day,
Yeah.
order in, have a good meal
Exactly.
planned, so make it a good fun day so that it's not that it's numbing kind of how you feel, but it's just helping you cope a little bit if you are struggling.
Yeah, and I like to think of having of this as, maybe get a paradigm shift, right? So, it's a Hallmark holiday, there's love in the air. I mean, like if I see one more like chocolate ad or flowers being ordered, like it's everywhere. Once it's after New Year around here, these days it's like everything becomes all about Valentine's Day. But we have this idea that if you're not, as a society, I should say, if you're not in a relationship, then it's sad, right? Like spending Valentine's Day by yourself is sad. Spending time with your boys or your girlfriends is sad. So, but why? Why is that sad? You love them, right? It doesn't. Everyone doesn't have to be coupled up on that day. So for you, it may be making that paradigm shift. You might have had, especially for those in long relationships. If you've always spent Valentine's Day a certain way, then it feels like it's sad. Like why all these sad single people? Well, there's all these fabulous single people, and you're one of them. So making that mental shift goes a long way to helping you survive this first Valentine's Day by yourself.
Absolutely, especially if you have like historical, like you said, like traditions and ways you spend the day. It's a new chapter. Maybe it's a new holiday. Maybe it's a new tradition that you put out to play. And then another kind of like sentiment that we'd like to put out there is it's okay to not be okay. Like it's okay to not feel all happy and dandy, and to
Yeah.
struggle. It's okay. It is if even if it's not a very new separation, but maybe, it's the first Valentine's Day that you guys are not spending together, and there's a lot of associated emotions with that. So, but it's okay. It's a day. It will pass. So just remembering it could be a hard day, and it's okay that, it's not the most fabulous and fond of times. So some of our suggestions are really just to make it a little more easier to cope with the day if there is some concerns about, and some sentiments about some struggles there. But yeah.
Yep. So yeah, I couldn't I can add to that. It's okay to not be okay. That really is. That day would pass. This period would pass. You will hopefully feel differently as time goes on about Valentine's Day. But if you're some of among the lucky few, I should say, that have recoupled, and this is now your first Valentine's Day in a new relationship, well, that doesn't come without its own struggles, does it? Right?
Yeah, exactly. Especially if you're dealing with a partner that's not yet accepted it or is not entirely happy that you're coupled or repartnered, it can make it challenging to deal with that kind of relationship and that added stress. Sometimes we've have clients who talk about like being constantly harassed on this day,
Mhm.
and like people showing up to the home, and like just that uncomfortable feeling. So just being mindful, of the conflict that can occur. And if you do, or if you are in a new relationship, just kind of trying to keep conflict to a minimal. And there are some ways, especially if you have children involved, being mindful of the other parent. If you have like calls scheduled for that day, like video calls for parenting, ensuring that maybe the repartnered person is just maybe not in the eyes view. If you guys are amicable, by all means, it makes sense. But this isn't really targeted for a very happy-go-lucky, co-parenting relationship. We hope that you get there. But, if it is a new relationship and the other person is struggling, and you may not even think that they're struggling, but just being mindful of the other parent's comments and thoughts about that.
Yeah. Two things I want to add there. One is safety. Okay. So you want to be, if repartnering is usually one of those triggers, it's for abusive partners. So if that's a situation that exists for you, if you've gone through, if you're living an abusive relationship, just be very mindful that if you're repartnering on this Valentine's Day, it might be a trigger for your former spouse. And so have a safety plan in place. If you don't have one, you could reach out to us. That's something we could help you with. Or just there's lots of organizations out there to help, people that are in this situation. But you need to have a plan. You need to be prepared to deal with a situation that might occur, and we hope it doesn't happen to you. And this is often, this is something we don't want to associate with such a happy, loving day, but the reality is for some people it might create some level of unsafety. So do be prepared, whether it's just calling the police, whether it's being careful with the plans that you make, things like that. I just want you to think about your safety. So that's the one thing there for those that are newly repartnered. Another thing is when it comes to if you have children, think about and I know Shireen, you had touched on the videos and making sure the other partner is in there, and that might also help in terms of safety concerns and things like that. But I'm also thinking how appropriateness of meeting a new partner. So if you are in a new relationship and you haven't discussed this with your ex, and there's children involved, we deal with a lot of conflict around when is the right time to introduce a new partner, and are you acting in the best interest of the children, or are you just being reckless? So if you've not kind of had this conversation with your ex, be mindful, because if you have your new partner romantically show up with flowers and picks you up for Valentine's Day, and maybe the children are old enough to be by themselves, but how would it play out if they go back to the other parent and say, well, so and so went on a date with this person, we met the date, if they come to the door and now you're like, yeah, meet, you know, John, you know what I mean? So now you've introduced John, and maybe you have a separation agreement that has stipulations about when new partners should be introduced, or even if you don't, there's etiquette around these things. Or I shouldn't say etiquette, there's different thoughts around it, and we just want you to be mindful. There's no set law as to the right time, but everyone has an opinion, and we would hate for Valentine's Day to be what would create conflict in your life just because your children have met this new partner and your ex doesn't think it's appropriate. And it may not even be them showing up to the door. If if you have an evening, as Shireen said, and they're video calling and now they see this new partner, well, are we engaging, in a situation where someone makes that an issue and says, well, it's too soon, or we didn't discuss it, and all of that. So we want this day to go perfect for you, and we want, we want you to be okay. And if you're not, we know that you will get there soon.
Absolutely. And yeah, just to touch on your point a little bit, we're talking about as if you guys are not living in the same home. It gets a little different when you're living in the same home, celebrating Valentine's Day. So some of our comments are meant to also be applied to that scenario too, being mindful of the other parent. If there are safety concerns, make sure that those are taken care of and given some thought, so that way, you're protected, and you don't feel uncomfortable. Obviously, you shouldn't have your date in the home if the other parent is also there. I mean, by all means, but it's extremely awkward, and I don't know how that would go about, but just being mindful in general of how that would all play out, and just keeping things hopefully to the least amount of contention possible so that you can enjoy the day.
Yeah. So having said all that, we hope you have a fantastic Valentine's Day. We hope we've given you some tips to help you get through this day as peacefully as possible. And until next time, it's bye for now.
Bye.